Okay, that's fine.
Well, try.
Do the best you can. Yeah. Um, yeah, some home, associations or property owners associations have specific requirements what they allow and what they don't. I'm not telling you to go against those. I just think you should have some additional signage here that makes it a little bit easier for them. Coming into the turn here too, you have these two trees which are, you know, uh, nice mature on the right, but making that sharp turn, think about the size of the vehicle that they may have with them. So I think about at least a minimum trimming some of the branches up here, but the one on the left, if they're turning in, and this is the main access to come in, you may want to consider whether or not you want to keep that particular tree. Some of the vehicles they bring in are fairly large. So normally the brush trucks could fit, inside of here. As far as your gate goes, is that why you have it here to provide something?
No, it's there because it was there.
Oh,
We
okay.
we don't use it for anything
I'm
else.
the eyeball, and it
Yeah,
looked like it might not go all the way across, but
It won't.
I've been going to take it out. But
yeah, okay,
Yeah, we've measured. We have 20 feet between those two trees.
okay. You may be fine. I just, and coming in, I'm just thinking if you have something and those branches are touching each other too. So if you're able to make an early decision, that's less of a concern. If you want to keep that, then you just have to go earlier. But I think for most of those smaller trucks can get in and they may decide to stay out here and they could drive up and then run hose if they're going to do that, over towards the house if they're looking at it. So um well, it's more of a comfort factor, what I'm kind of thinking. Sorry, I got so many alarms that I'm dealing with. Um, so I think it's okay for the most part, but I would consider at least trimming up some of the branches around the sides here. If the more I can not give them a doubt about coming in, the better off I think I am overall. I'm more concerned about the left turn coming in than anything else. If they can swing wide and come in, they may be fine. So, yeah,
they're going to
no,
be in church.
they are. Um, all right. Before I forget, I should have done this before I started here. We'll get closer to the house. Um, who does not have a series of the forms for the homeowners assessment that we were talking? I have a whole bunch of these here to pass out, just for reference purposes. Tell you what. All right. We're going to talk on the first house here, and then on the second house, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the aspects of the checklist that we see on the first house. And then when we go to the second house, then we're going to give you guys the forms and then let you go and do the assessment. And then we're going to all come back together and talk about what we see. Okay. So you get one where I'm talking about what Lisa mentioned in all of the videos here and bring a different or bring the same perspective and then give you a chance to do a practical for yourselves. Okay. So let me go ahead and give these out. These forms, which you can, I'm working to get you guys the address for the person to request these, but for your neighborhood, of course, you saw the ones that are online, but these forms that you can order from the National Volunteer Fire Council are the same items here, but they're a multi-page form. So as you're giving one out, it has a duplicate that's a yellow page behind it. So it has a duplicate behind it and the main page up front. There are 7 pages for each form here. They come with these blue cardstock pieces, and I recommend that you put that under each sheet. Each sheet is an individual form. It's not all put together. So you have 7 separated pieces or duplicate forms here. And so to avoid the bleed over onto the next page, I just recommend you have like page 1 on top and then the blue cardboard underneath here, so it'll prevent the bleed over into the other sheet, if that makes sense. Okay. It's the National Volunteer Fire Council, and they're the ones that developed the wildfire assessment program that Lisa covered here in the program. There are many other folks that have assessment forms, but that's the folks that trained us to do the train. They did a train the trainer with us at the it was a Colorado Wildland Academy about 5 years ago, I think. I'm losing track of time with all of that. But we're following their program, and they provide the forms, and they provide them for free. It just they print them in batches, so it takes a little while for them to do it. I asked them in January when they would have them ready, and they said they would get the next set somewhere around March, April timeframe. So I'm thinking that they should be available fairly soon. They come in. We ordered a box. Shrink wrapped in about, I think these are, this is 15, either 15 or 25 forms, 25 forms per packet. And when we ordered them, we got, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200 originally. So you can get plenty of forms from them. You can also get the same form from the website here without a problem. Okay, so let me start giving some of these out. The idea behind the duplicates is that you could leave one with the homeowner, and if you had like a Firewise committee, you could give it to the Firewise committee, or you could, if your fire department was interested in those, you could give that copy to them. There's also, I'm glad you mentioned that. There's an option to do this online, but you have to do a coordination piece with your local fire department for the form to be sent to them. So you could basically take your copy that you have with the committee, go to the online site, fill it out on there, and then transmit it, and it would be emailed automatically, to them too. So there are two different ways to do it. So thank you for that question. All right, I'll get my act together here.
Can I hold?
Yeah.
I threw everything down. So
Tell you what, can you hold this one for me? And then I can start moving these out of the way. And I might have mixed up copy number 1 here. So yeah, do you have
I have a.
You have a copy? Okay. All right. So you don't need to write on as we're going through this property. We'll save that for the next one. Oh. Yeah, butterfingers today. Or as my kids would say, butter thumbs.
My fingers are so dry around here,
Right. Oh, you might get 2 blue sheets here.
Oh, somebody's missing one. I can hand it over to them. Oh, by the way, on the website, the National Volunteer for $18. You join, you get all their training for free.
One in here. There you go.
It does have all the content stuff. So our fire committee team for our little unit plan, I've already sent 4 of them to do it. And then you can just integrate right with the fire department.
Oh, there's that 2 sets?
It's great because even for all the
Oh, yeah.
all the modules, but it won't have virtual. I'll take mine in a second. Get them out to you.
Okay.
You have one already. Do it in your, your group, your area, your HOA. I've had a lot of good success with our group wanting to do that. It's a fabulous resource. And it's that's pretty cool, yeah. Yeah, it does.
Oh, there's an extra one here. Yeah, thank you. All right. Anybody not have a copy that?
You want one? Anybody? I
Okay.
think we're all good.
All right. All right. Let's head towards the house now. When I worked at the Pentagon, they used to give these tours, and they still do, where a soldier, sailor, airman, or marine, they would walk backwards through the Pentagon and give the tour about everything's going on. But if I did that, I'd be wind up in the mud here.
You don't want to do that.
I was a staff officer on for the Air Force and working on the air staff. I was a navigator on a B-52. Awesome. He must be a great guy then. Nice. Love that plane. It certainly was. Sound of freedom. Okay. Tell you what.
This is the north side of the house. The house is straight north side.
Okay. So we still have one trailer. I'll wait. Okay. You guys remember what the zones were?
530 and
Some people will throw zone 1 and 5 and 30 together here. So you'll see that interchangeable. The what's the important piece about the 5-foot zone is looking for vegetation that's really in close proximity to the house here. And then 30 feet, you want to have clear of trees as well. But really the first 5 feet, you want to avoid anything that's really flammable that can have any kind of form of touching on the house here. So you look pretty good in my view here for the most part on this side of the house here. And then when you're talking about, when you're doing an assessment with the house, I know you have the checklist here and here are all the items. But in terms of flowing as you're approaching the house, I kind of look at the house itself in the 5-foot zone at the same time. So it kind of helps you with make it a little bit shorter here. But for the most part here, you have wood siding here, and some folks get fearful about that. Um, the really important part about this, I have wood siding on,
this
on,
is composite.
is it composite? Awesome. Better yet.
Flat C rating.
Okay.
Called true wood.
True wood. The pieces that you want to be concerned about is you're not going to replace the whole siding on your house. I mean, that's really expensive, right? But you do want to be concerned about embers and ember flow here. So you want to take a look at the siding and the gaps and make sure that you have those aspects caulked, because you don't want to have embers that will fly up and underneath here. So I would take a look all around the house to make sure that any gaps that you have in there are addressed with it, and especially at the lower levels here, especially if you have vegetation. The grass for the most part is kind of sparse here, but I would consider keeping that as low as possible, in that first 5 feet of the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having gone through
Yeah.
this, we're going to switch that to wall.
Can we walk around this way around the house?
You can go that way, or it's kind of a
What-
tricky walk because of the snow.
What's the best
So
way?
if you don't
Go
want
ahead.
to chance that, we can go into the house, up the steps, and out the front door. That's okay. We got stuff.
Yeah, I'll take your recommendation. Which
Yeah,
which
I don't want people.
going this way? Okay.
Well, because we know the foundation
Mm.
goes up to about here.
Yep.
That would be one of my. Yeah, I mean, it could be very easily flat, but that wouldn't be my biggest concern.
It looks like um,
Yeah, the soffit that's Hardy's plant.
And I really like how they
Yeah.
did the
And it's
banding.
pre-drilled.
Yeah,
Because
that's
it
small
doesn't
hole.
need hardware cloth.
there's there are folks who haven't put on screening. I love it's consistent all the way across. You get the venting you want, but there's very low possibility of embers flying into that. So that's a really great product.
And we had a question too about, you talked about the screening with the deck. Can you just put it up under?
Are you referencing just the underneath portions of your deck here?
Yeah.
What type
where
of
instead
deck planking do
screening
you
it this
have there?
way, could you screen it in that way?
Since it's open here, I don't know that it's as much of a concern. I don't see like a collection, aspect to this. Yeah, it can come into this area, but I don't see where there are gaps, right here towards the house that it could sneak in. So it would likely, come in and fall and hit.
I don't know if you
But you can screen it if you want to give yourself additional protection.
But
But
that way, there's no snow, and that's the rest of the deck over there. I don't know if
okay,
you
yeah,
can
let's
see
go
it.
that way.
And you can see the east side of the house.
Maybe consider, the gaps in the wood right here. Mhm.
It's not wood.
See, you don't have anything in close proximity to the home. You've got the little weeds there, but you can, knock those down pretty well. Do you have anything stored underneath the deck over here?
There's one roll of this fencing, but it's not.
Wire fence.
It's
Oh,
just
it's wire
sitting to
fencing.
keep the dogs from going out that way. So we tend to move it.
Yeah, I see the lattice in that. I think, let's see, you said this is the north here.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah. Oh, it's a small area. And it's all bare rock. There's, yeah, I don't think that's much of a concern. You're not keeping and storing anything that's flammable in that area. So, I think you're fine with it. And just understand that the deck portion, you have separation from it. You have, you get your tree that's within the first 30 feet here. So that. I'll just tell you from what what the program says is they want you to avoid having any trees within 30 feet, and then it's a small branch overhanging your deck here, but it's something to consider here for that particular tree. So, and this is a pure wooden frame here, so it is flammable and somewhat close proximity, but you have good separation out this way for the most part here.
So 30 feet for distance from the deck, any deck.
Yes. Yes. Anything that you want to have in terms of there are variations, right? There's no, you can be absolute if you want, but there are considerations that you can bring in, like if you wanted to have that tree as part of your 30 feet, then you'd have to move out from that 30 feet here. So it's however you want it. So it's if the fire's coming in and you want to have these trees, then that cluster of trees needs to be, a 30-foot separation from there. But that doesn't mean that these trees are not going to catch fire. It just means you have additional risk and you have to put out additional layers of protection for yourself outside of that, if that makes sense. But you know, what I do see are some what types of trees do you have out there? Are those aspens?
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
wall of action.
Hmm. Okay. So one of the big concerns about within the first 30 feet are especially ladder fuels. We call any fire that can go from the ground, let's say from grass into lower bushes that are then um, underneath trees that can allow fire to climb from the ground into the trees. You want to avoid in the first 30 feet, and some folks will say from the first 100 feet for sure, and trim those out. And then after 100, you can allow a little bit more of that to occur. But um, I've not heard anything and say that you need to get rid of aspen, but notice that you're clustering trees a little bit more, so they will grow in here. And so aspen do burn like other trees. So if you're having them closer to the house, then you're bringing in a little bit more of a risk. They're beautiful in the fall, here. Uh,
Talk about scrub oak.
I hate scrub oak.
Is that the same thing as gamble oak?
Yes, it is. Gamble oak and juniper are a more oily tree here, and the as I understand, you normally give a spacing of about 10 feet between trees. You with gamble oak, you want to give the additional um, 5 to 10 feet on top of that. It tends to burn. Most fires burn. They tell you twice the height of that particular height of vegetation. With gamble oak and juniper, it's 3 times. So if you have gamble oak or juniper, you have to pay a special attention
Cinnamon.
to, yes. And there are places that they they have loads of gamble oak around. You guys don't have that particular problem that as I see here, thank goodness. Um,
We went to the Black Canyon and they had it all over.
yeah,
I thought I'd like to have some of that.
yeah, yeah. As I look at your house, what kind of roofing do you have? Do you know what class roof do you have?
All fiber finger, Class A.
Class A, okay. And as I look at your chimney stack too for your fireplace. That looks like it's screened at the top and covered, as opposed to your regular rectangular chimneys. I don't see. Yeah, I don't see. Some folks will have that um, here for a chimney. Like I have a wood burning stove here with a standard, rectangular chimney. You have to screen off the top to make sure this is for embers going out as well as embers coming, in. Okay. I'm more so concerned about them coming out, for that particular concern on a windy day and then having that now catch in and around your property than I am worried about as much they come in because the fireplace is built to burn fire. And most folks keep their fireplaces closed, but if you don't, then that's a consideration as well. Gutters, I can't tell whether they're metal or vinyl.
Metal.
Outstanding. Um, the difference between the vinyl will burn. And if there, do you have screening on top of your?
We don't,
Mm.
but I just clean them out.
Okay, good.
And surprisingly,
Mm.
we'll get a few pine needles in there, but we don't get a lot of stuff in the gutter.
Okay, yeah, you've got good clearance, from that. I used to have everything I'm telling you that I have the same problems. I live in a heavily wooded um, subdivision here, and it took years, and I'm still working on my property. So there are no perfect properties, in at least the Monument Black Forest area. And we had to every year, a couple times a year, go out and clear um, the rooftops and the gutters of pine needles. And I have screening. I put screening on top of that. It looks sort of similar to what you have on the underneath the soffits there, but it's a cover for it. And then the pine needles come in, and then in a small hole like that, they'll come in and find a way to get into those too. So I have to work on those along the way.
The other thing here is we usually have a lot of wind. It blows stuff off the roof. We don't get stuff accumulating on the roof or in the gutters. It just gets blown away.
So do you find that you have a prevailing wind in this area?
Yeah.
Which way does it come in from?
It usually comes like this way. Until you're walking, and when you're walking up that hill, the wind is always blowing down.
So mine is coming, it's from different, because I'm up here, mine comes from like Waddell and Kenosha Pass.
Mhm. The other aspect to consider with this is sloping too. So downward slopes to this way, um, fires will come and they will cross. They like to climb uphill though. They climb uphill pretty fast. So when you're thinking about considerations for fire towards your house, you have to extend the separation between trees. Normally there's a recommendation to separate the distance between crowns of trees by about 10 feet between the branches. And then if you're looking at an uphill consideration, you might want to think about adding a distance of 5 or 10 feet to that too, because of the nature of the fire and how it performs. Coming down, you have an uphill and then a downhill. Sometimes if you have a fire that's cresting and running between valleys, for you guys there in the Waldo Canyon fire, fires would come across the top of a hill, start burning towards the top or downward some, and start superheating the other side of that area. So don't think that just because fires climb uphill that it won't come down, but they'll start superheating the other side and then drying things out and making things a little bit more flammable. So I kind of try to think about that too as we're coming across. It doesn't mean that you're going to avoid it. Here it's impossible to handle, but it's just an additional consideration. Whenever I think about areas like this, I always go back to that Boulder Wildfire Partners video that we showed in the kickoff meeting, where you had the house on the top of the hill, and it was there clear, and then everything around it was burnt. So yeah, you're doing pretty well here. Everything I'm telling you, um, I'm not saying everything is impossible here. I'm just telling you what the guidelines tell us here. But when I look at this house and property, I view it in a very positive light, and I think you guys have done a great job. Thinning wise, you don't have. I mean, this is healthier than many other places that I've seen. Many places you'll see will be literally the black forest is the black forest. You can't see much sunlight coming through, and you have these thin, spindly trees like this one, over here, but there are a lot of them. Here, you have the potential to have your trees grow strong and yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Uh, it's the natural, it's the natural way that um, the environment performs to try to get rid of those smaller trees here. And these.
Respond to a comment. I have actually a federal firefighter in my HOA, and
Mhm.
boy, he was not a helpful thing. He, when I put things out to the community, he says, "Well, what are we worried about? It's just going to follow the drainage dishes, and it's not going to go to our homes." And I'm like, "What? Can you respond to that?"
Yes, yes. The Waldo Canyon fire didn't purely stay in drainage areas. um,
and that's directly across from our property.
We can see it.
When I looked at your address and looked at the burn scar area, it's right there. So I tell them to take a look at the burn scar and tell me if they followed purely drainage area. He's right. He's a firefighter, of course, but with that respect, but fire behavior is really strange. 4 Mile fire up north. Where are we? I'm trying to think. Yeah, further north. There was an area where it was a bowl here, and I listened to an outbrief by the emergency manager and the incident commander, and he talked about the fire went in every cardinal direction at the same time. Because if you get there are three different aspects related to that impact fire behavior: fuel, weather, and topography. And the firefighter was talking about the topography, but there's also a weather aspect to it. During the Waldo Canyon fire, and this is what violated what he was talking about, fire creates its own weather sometimes, and it gets so hot, it builds up, thunderstorms up above it. And then that afternoon, when it really went big, there was a massive downdraft from a thunderstorm that blew wind straight down, and it went out in all directions. So the weather aspect would trump, and push fire in directions where it might not normally go. So there are a lot of different considerations in with that. So if you factored in all three of those, and I'm telling you the stuff that I did a ride along with my firefighter from my district, fire marshal, and he just kept hitting me with that fuel, weather, topography, and think about us, think about yourself, getting in and getting out here. So everything we're talking about helps you survive, helps your home survive if you're not here. We're not going to tell you to pick up a hose and some tools in the middle of a fire. We're going to tell you to get out first here. But what we're doing is hopefully um, giving your house a better chance to survive after you leave. Okay.
We also hear from the road that down that valley there, clear down another quarter mile. That's a drainage system. And all this up here.
My fire marshal told me that I have a drainage ditch that runs right by my house, and it runs out from the road and a good ways in. And as we drove around the neighborhood, he said, "That's a drainage ditch that goes to your house." And he said, "Yes." And he said, "It's going to follow that, under normal conditions, all the way up to your property." So think about it from that perspective coming in. So I'm going to take a look at the checklist, make sure that I'm going to assume that you guys are going to look at the inside of your home piece for yourself. Consider, if you're not here, the potential for induction fires here. And what that means is if you have a superheated fire environment outside, if it's hot enough here, it could superheat things on the inside of the house. And in Waldo Canyon by us, there were drapes and things that uh, caught fire inside the house when the fire was not burning it from the outside, and it burned from the inside out. So if they had a lot of vegetation surrounding their houses, you're doing better than they were. They had scrub oak, and then they also had HOA rules that drove them to have cedar shake shingles on their roof. It was a mandatory requirement to have cedar shake shingles. Now that's not a problem anymore, but unfortunately they had to lose 400 some odd homes to
When the fire department came up to our house, we used to have those windows, so they had taken those and off windows as a precaution. They had taken a propane tank off of our grill and moved it to the big middle in between the barn and the house.
Awesome.
Get it as far away from both.
Yep.
There's a lot we learned just when we came home to see what they did.
Yeah, and I saw that your propane tank is a good ways away from the house, and that's good. If you had smaller tanks, there's a lot of debate about that. You know, where do I put them? And what Lisa told you, you know, as far away from the house or inside the garage, my preference is if I can move it, I'm moving it away from the house. Now, you know, some will say now you're just creating a more flammable, you know, consideration outside your house here, but you know, um, if right, uh, yeah, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Whoa,
She's not a city dog.
nice.
This is what she brings back all the time.
Mm.
Oh, I know, it's like a girl. Just such a good girl. Oh, yeah.
Okay, make sure I'm cognizant of the time. We got about an hour left here. I don't see any mulch products around the house here. There are some folks that like to have that and make it look pretty. The uh, nowhere around Colorado is a lawn well irrigated, and if they do, wow, they must have a sprinkler system, you know, resonant with them. You don't have any dead vegetation, and you know, for the most part, it's very thin and sparse. And when it um, just consider keeping it down in and around the house here, and then um, the 5 to 30 foot islands of vegetation. Um, I haven't, I'm not able to take a look in the back, but it looks like here you do have a good bit of separation between the house and those trees and those bushes here. So I think you're doing well with those. Um, yep, trees in the zone maintained with a minimum horizontal spacing of 10 feet between crowns. So just understand you have less, you know, of that spacing here. You have some in some areas, and maybe definitely consider it more in your evacuation route here if you wanted to you know, keep this and maintain. I know some folks want to have shade because they have a deck here, and I'm not sure. You said that's north, right? Uh, okay, yeah, that would be, most people like to have it on the west side of their house here. Um, your branches and on your trees that you do have, they're all limbed up, so you're doing really well with that. Here for the pines, some folks we have them really hanging low, especially around in yeah. And then on the ingress, I guess if you wanted to help folks out here, if you wanted to take a look at the trees and limb those up, I think that would just, if you can't clear them out, would be an initial good step to give you a greater degree of safety going out. So working with your neighbors to for the entire route, everybody that has a property on that road is to ask, you know, if they're willing to at least limb up those trees here, and if they're not, are they opposed to a neighborhood group doing that for them? um, some are not able to do it, and so and it's a lot of work.
There are several places along the road where there are some little trees growing up right by the road. And that's one of the things I was going to consider them while they're still little.
Okay, and we talked about the steep slope vegetation. Um, and non-combustible wall within 15 to 20 feet of the down slope of the home, particularly if deck overhangs the slope. And mostly what we're referencing with that is folks like to run vegetation right up from the house from lower. You don't have, I mean, it's mostly dry grass, standard Colorado out there. You don't have tall grasses that I've seen with some folks that is very thick, or a lot of bushes out there. So I think for the fire helped you out. um, so yeah, it's worthy of consideration. So 5 on out to 30, and then just, you know, keep it maintained after that.
Other side, there are some
It just stopped recording. I don't know if I bumped something. Oh, that's okay. Let's see. I think it's going into sleep mode, but yeah. Oh. Okay, yeah, it's still going. Mhm. Um, the pallet. Do you normally keep that because now you got something that's close to the ground that is flammable that can go up a pole here? Is that something that you want to retain? So I consider, yeah. And then, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I don't see a lot of duff around here. You guys familiar with what duff is? Basically, a bed of pine needles, dead pine needles on the ground. You're doing pretty well for the most part out here, but you know, if you had clusters of trees where you don't normally work, then that's a particular consideration for that along the way. So just anything that is flammable, if a little ember can catch it on fire, think about it as tinder. When you're starting a fire, you start with little small pieces of straw and wood. Well, if you have that in and around your house, that's tinder for the fire, for embers that can come flying around too. So don't think of it that it has to start way out there and come here. If the embers are flying in your neighborhood and they're falling in your yard, can any of that catch fire and then be connected and run towards the house and touch the house? So think about it from that perspective. But usually, oh, it looks like you got your soffit vents too. They're screened. They're very small spacing, so I don't see a big gap that they could fly in there. So I think you guys are doing great. Are there any questions about this particular property or the concepts in general? Um, I think for the most part we covered all the different sections that I've seen here in the three zones. Um, I don't think you have to screen it. Anything you can provide as protection, of course, you have to be um, it'll be helpful. But what we talked about from this direction is one, making sure you don't have any kind of plant material close to your window that could superheat the window and then cause the window to burn up and explode. But do you have double pane windows? Uh, so the recommendation is to have double paned or tempered windows. Tempered windows can be very expensive. I know that. We looked at that before, and we have a lot of windows in our house. But it's once again making sure that any gaps between your planking are taken care of here, and especially on your frames here too, in relation to your house, from where your planking goes into your window frames and those aspects here. So anything you get anything hot, you can basically burn it. Here's Lynn, you have a question?
I'm sorry. No, you can. Well, okay. My question is with respect to the doors to the outside, particularly at grade. Bad to have windows.
I don't know that set of windows is any more dangerous than that, but they tend to be single pane
Right.
when they're with the door. So if you have some way to be able to cover it up, if you decide to go, I would consider that, because then if they get superheated and then they go, then now you have embers that can go into your garage here. So
How about storm doors as a mitigation measure? Is that favored or not? I mean, if it's the right material, glass,
yeah,
steel, aluminum,
well,
or steel glass.
most recommendations that I've seen with that, and this is not, I would say not my area of expertise, but if you have a fire rated door, something that's on the metal side, you'll be better suited than having something that's wooden. So, but I think for the most part he's doing okay with that, with the the concern with the windows there. A garage, on your garage, I know we saw the garage door. The doors are up right now, but when they're down, are there gaps in the flashing? When your garage door is down, the seals around it, do you have good sealing around it?
Corners where the chipmunks eat it,
Right?
so I need to put some metal.
Yeah. So that's a consideration too. So if you especially have an uphill slope facing your garage here, where you might see embers fly, and think about if if you have a collection of leaves and pine needles around your house under normal conditions, then that's where the embers are going to fly during a fire too. So if they're flying and gathering near your garage door, then you should consider strongly even the seals you have around those particular areas. Same thing with the doors and windows. You want to all of those areas where you're seeing collection of debris at some point are areas of stronger consideration for all the different mitigation hazards. As I understand it was, oh, we could go. Is it okay to go through? How can we get? As long as you're okay with it, I don't want to force you to do anything like that. Hi.
Now, can you walk on the, would it be better to get out on the drive?
Now, if we could just access the deck around, that might be fine too.
Paula, you want to just, we can walk on the road and then go back, come down. Let's just go over there. Just walk over there. Sure.
That's not an easy walk up there.
Just
It's under
shuffle
the snow, it's not level.
Just shuffle your feet as you come through.
All right. Oh, I like your car. Very good. You guys take it for a spin any trouble?
Akuda. Very nice.
We will. That's we.
So I gotta ask what year.
We've had it since 1967.
I've been little for years and years before you. Yeah, I bet mine 20 years, 20, 30 years.
Nice. 1989 until 2000 were my active flying years. If you let's see. Oh, this is the side. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, you guys are doing great here.
This part. Yeah, and you have a place to rest stuff.
Right. This is so beautiful. It's amazing. Tell you what, you guys can stay here. I'll go down here and then. Don't worry, Jim. I can edit the video around. Still, you get everybody? No, you're fine to just keep going. I'll take care of the. Not a great editor, but I slept at a Holiday Inn Express one time. Oh. This side of the house is doing really well here too. You can see on this side of the house, even though it's not flash, you don't have anything that can burn up right up to the house here. Although, I mean, I love how you have the separation here, although you have some vegetation here of concern. So this is probably your most immediate concern to address with respect to that. And, mhm. And as I look at the house from this side here, everything looks well sealed. I don't see really any gaps that jump out at me. Looking underneath the roofing here, it looks like it would be difficult for embers to get up inside there, and I didn't see any stuff on the roof that would burn it. So I think you guys are doing really well here. Separation on trees is outstanding here along the way. So Um, yes, sir.
Fence over here. Dryer bed.
Oh, yeah. This is the debate Lisa talked about here. In terms of embers here, I'm not sure if you're screened here.
No, they're not.
Yeah. So, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you screen from the inside, then you have lint building up on the inside there that becomes flammable. But if you don't, then it could still fly in. I would recommend, screening and then taking a look at it occasionally
That's
to
a
make sure it
dryer
build
bed.
up.
That's a ceiling vent from the bathroom.
Okay. So, yeah. Wow. I've never seen this before. This is awesome. Oh, a point I wanted to bring up about, I'm sure you have a basement here, right?
Yes.
Um, Lisa mentioned it in a discussion here, but heaven forbid your house um, burns here. You need to look at your insurance policies to make sure that your foundation and your basement are covered in your policy. We had tens, hundreds, I don't know if it's hundreds, but there were a significant number of people that did not have that in the Waldo Canyon fire. And although the house was insured, when they lost their house to the fire, and they were ready to build their house again, the the fire burned so hot that it turned the foundation to chalk almost. And they didn't have the basement covered in their policy, and so they couldn't get their house rebuilt. And so they had to pay out of their own pocket or get a loan after they'd lost everything to get the process started on rebuilding their house. So just take a look at your policy and see that that aspect is covered in it. Yeah.
Remove things and raise them.
Yes.
I noticed on the side,
Yeah.
on the other side here, you can see where everything can go.
No, but as I look at the house itself here, uh, this part is sealed in, so it doesn't look like it can go inside. Yeah, but you're right. Better off to not have it here and then consider sealing any gaps that you have there. Um, it's a lot of maintenance, folks. I'm not gonna lie to you. Your
Some of
power,
the gaps are just now starting. We've lived here long enough.
sure.
We're settling. So we're seeing things that we didn't see before.
I think Lisa talked about it some about power lines here. Um, on the property, there is an easement, I'm sorry, for the power lines that is a responsibility of that electrical service provider. They will trim it away from that. You guys are doing pretty well here. I saw a couple of places where the pine trees were right underneath the power lines here. So if there are any power line areas in your particular area where you live, I recommend calling the power company and tell them, take pictures of it and give that to them so they can send their crews out and take care of it. But don't live with that particular danger. We were working with a family in Red Rock Ranch, and they had a power line that went directly to the house, and they had about 3 or 4 trees that were, intertwined inside the power lines. And we're like, you need to take care of that. It, yeah, it'll be debatable as to whether or not, the line coming from the line to your house is your responsibility or theirs. If they determine it's yours, get a tree service and get them to take care of it. I love that your propane tank is a good ways from the house there, so that's good. Yep. Anything that you're going to have and that you want protected, you need to apply the same principles around that. So if you had, say, um, a storage shed or something that you wanted to survive a fire, that you would want to still apply the same zones around that particular piece of housing, utility sheds, etc., that you would do with your house. Okay. Any other questions here? I know I like to do it instead of going through the checklist each item. I kind of like to look at it holistically here, and then look at it from a fire behavior, and then go back and take a look. Did I miss anything with the checklist along the way? Okay. If you don't have any questions, Susan, where's your property? Is it?
Come out this driveway, take the left, and it's the next right. It's a Shangri-La alpaca sign at the base of it. So you can't miss it.
Right there.
And if you do, it's a cul-de-sac and turn around and come back. So,
Okay. So what we'll do over there is we'll head over to Susan's house. Then we'll let you guys start around, and I'd like you to do it independently here. So take a look at the house, walk around, and sort of like we did in that same mindset, and then annotate any concerns that you would see. I'm not expecting you to look out and do the entire form, but like if you see an area that's a concern, just write like a no to that particular piece, or let's if it's positive and it's good, let's write a note about that.
oh,
Okay.
and the snow's melted a lot, so you'll see the gate is open and somebody could park in there too. So I've got a lot.
Okay. How about, I guess we should let you, or unless you're trapped in there, let you go first,
Oh,
and
no,
we can
I
follow.
don't. My car's at the
Oh, you
shop
walked?
today,
Okay, then
so
we can
I have
follow
to
you.
walk or jump in somebody's car.
Okay. And then, so when we get out, just you start walking around, and then start going through the process, and then we'll. Would it be better just for us to walk there?
Oh, you could. It's an eighth of a mile up the driveway. If y'all want to walk,
Let's see.
I do it a lot. If anybody doesn't want to walk, it's in
Yeah,
the car.
yeah. I'll leave it up to you, however you want to handle it. I'm happy to walk. And then we'll come back together, and then we'll talk about the different aspects, from a group perspective, so we can all understand what the concerns that were noted. Because someone will see something that someone else may miss. Okay, so let's head over to Susan's house. Awesome.
So I guess going up the drive is good. This way we can assess the driveway, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I can stop it here now.